Hello everybody, this is Mr. Ramsey and I'll be walking you through today's lesson on character development. What will you do today? You will write about one character from Because of Mr. Terupt. You will include evidence to support your idea. You will listen to the read aloud and you will log your minutes. The essential question today is, how do we notice character development? And we'll talk about basically looking for differences in the way they behave. Important vocabulary: contrast is when one group of characters behaves differently than another group. Contradiction is when an individual character behaves differently than they did earlier in the story. So Snape is kind of nasty at the beginning, but later he actually does some good things. Internal conflict is what often creates character change, those difficult choices or decisions. And character development is when a character grows and changes, usually for the better. So let's practice a little bit. You might imagine the difference, the contrast between the behavior of students at the front of the bus and the back of the bus. For contradiction, you might imagine your mother sees you eating ice cream for breakfast. What would she do that would contradict her normal behavior? Normally, she would probably yell at you, but if she instead offered you chocolate syrup for your ice cream, you would say, that really contradicts the way that she typically behaves. So how do we notice character development? It's not too complicated. We really study the characters at the beginning of a story, and we slow down and carefully read when we notice them behaving differently. We summarize the change, we add evidence from the text, and we repeat our idea. Let's look at this. So here's Peter's chapter from October, and he's working with Anna on the plant project. So let's look for a behavior that is different than the way Anna typically behaves. And we find it here. They've been asked to put their plants inside of boxes, and she has a meltdown. She cries. We also can look at character reaction. Peter says he's shocked by her behavior. So we have 3 points that show us that Anna's acting kind of out of character. She's typically pretty quiet. So now the question is, how do we write about it? Summarize. So we might say, in this part, we see the character Anna have a meltdown. This contradicts her normally quiet behavior. So there's that contradict word. Next, we're going to add some evidence. Peter even says, I was kind of shocked. Usually she doesn't say anything. And now we're going to add our own thinking. I think she's really sensitive, and maybe the mistreatment of the plant is making her think about a person or herself. So this should look very familiar to the work that we've done already, but it's just a little bit more developed, but the same basic parts. So if we were going to practice this together, there's a part in this passage that is, Peter has a thought that's kind of surprising. So you can pause the video and see if you can find where is a place in this text where Peter thinks something that is kind of surprising. It's different than the way he normally is. All right, it's right here. I don't think anyone else heard. He has said, he says, I don't think anyone else heard, but I laughed. Lexi has made a fat joke about Danielle, and Peter laughs at it. But then he thinks, I know I probably shouldn't have. So here we see that Peter, even though he's normally maybe not the most sensitive kid, here we see him having this thought that he knows what he did was not right. So here's where you're going to practice this. Here's Jeffrey's, the end of Jeffrey's chapter. And in your wherever your teacher tells you, you're going to write about an example of Jeffrey acting or saying or thinking something that contradicts his typical behavior. So hopefully that was clear. I wish you the best of luck. As a reminder here, our question, how do we notice character development? We carefully study the characters at the beginning of the story, and we decide the way that they typically behave. And then we really slow down when we see them behaving differently, when their behavior contradicts their earlier behavior. All right, happy writing. Good luck. Au revoir.